In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what is on my drum bus when I'm mixing pop music, any sort of rock music, including pop rock, pop punk, and even country music. Basically, anywhere that you want the drums to sound huge and powerful. Take a listen. Okay, so let's start off and take a listen to what the drums sound like without any sends, any bus processing. They are mixed, there's EQ, there's some compression on the individual tracks, but we can still take them further than what they are right now. Take a listen. Okay, so on their own, they sound pretty good, but take a listen what happens when we put them in the mix. They just start to get a little bit lost, a little bit buried. They're just not punching through as much as we'd want. So in the mix, that's just sounding a little bit flat. We need to add some more space. We need to give the drums some more depth and also get them to really pop, especially when those fills are hitting. And the first thing we're going to look at is some reverb sends. Now, all of the drums are here. We've got the overheads, we've got a mono overhead, rooms, all the individual kicks, snares, toms, hat, etc. However, I'm only sending a couple of these tracks to the reverbs, and that is mainly the room. So we've got the stereo room track here, that's going to a bunch of reverbs, and also there is a snare room sample that is going to the reverb as well. None of the close mics are going to the reverbs. The toms not going, the close mic snares, the close mic kicks, even the kick sample, none of those are going. So it's just the room and the snare sample. And the reason for that is purely a creative one. What I'm looking to do with the drums here is to extend the size of the room rather than put reverb on the snare. If you put reverb onto the close mic snare, it starts to sound very 80s. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not the vibe that I'm going for here. It's quite a dated sound. I'm going for more of a modern sound, and that's not something that I want to do. The room tracks sound great, but I want to extend them. I want them to be in a bigger space, and I just want to create more depth from the rooms. And by sending the rooms to these different reverbs, then they tend to take on that new character, and it adds an extra dimension to the room, if that makes sense. So this is what the room track sounds like just on its own. Now the first place we're sending this is to a Sony 2000 reverb. I love this because it can sound super bright. We've got a short decay because there isn't a lot of space in this mix for a huge long 2-second reverb tails. We need a short sharp burst and then it to move out of the way. So we've got the decay time set to 656 milliseconds, super short. Before the reverb unit, we've got some EQ. I'm boosting an absolute ton of 1.5K, and as you can see, this is on a high shelf as well. So let's see what that's adding to the room sound. And off. Back on. So straight away you can hear the extra brightness that's adding. On its own it might sound horrible, but remember, we're not going to listen to this on its own. It's going to be in the context of the mix. So I really like what that reverb's adding. The next thing is a Bricasti marble room. I really like the low mid weight that this reverb has. Take that off. And back on. As well as it adding some weight in the low mids, it adds a really nice tail to the snare sample as well, which I really like that verb for. Now the next one is this RMX16 non-linear verb. This is the classic gated reverb sound, and it just really helps the snare to sound big and powerful and like it's in a big space, but without taking a ton of room in the mix. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like. And take that away. And back on. Again, you really notice it on the snare reverb tails, but it does it in a way that gets out of the way for when the next snare hit comes along. It's a great way to getting the drums to sound really big without taking a ton of space up in the reverb. Let's add all of those reverbs together. And take them off. It's an absolute night and day difference with those reverbs added. Now the next thing is the drum bus itself. Now every single one of my drum tracks are routed through these two buses here. This one at the top that's called drums has got absolutely nothing on it. There are no inserts, no sends. That is just a single fader for the drums. So if I want the drums to be, say, louder in the chorus, I can just automate this one fader rather than going through all of the individual drum multis. However, this one just below it, which I've called the crusher, this is the interesting one. Again, every single one of the drum tracks is going through this, but we do have some processing. And as you can see, I'm automating this up and down as we need to within the song. So this is my parallel processing channel for the drums, and what we have on it is basically some saturation, some EQ, a bit of transient design, and also some compression. The first thing is these two plugins from Slate Digital from the All Access Pass. This is the FG Bomber. This is kind of like an EQ and transient designer all in one unit. I've got this set to tight because this is quite a fast, intricate pop punk song, and we need the drums to sound glued and together, and that's just the preset that I felt worked best. And I'm driving this so that it's pushing into the red. That's where I felt the transients were sounding the best. And then the intensity, I'm dialing this back to about 25%. Again, these are just set to where it just kind of felt good. The next is an SSL EQ, basically just adding some top and bottom. So we've got a 5K shelf, just adding a couple of dB, 3.5, and then we've got a low shelf as well. This is set to around 100, and again about 4.5 dB, so just a bit of top and bottom. The next is my compressor. Now, I'm a huge fan of SSL bus compressors, particularly on drums. I really like how grabby they are and how much they snap. If you're not looking for something that you can get to really pump, then you probably don't want an SSL. But that's exactly what I'm going for here. I want that super pumped, really energetic sound, over compressed if anything, and then I'm just going to blend it in with the dry track. It's a parallel effect. Let's take a listen to this crusher track just completely on its own. Now put them back on. So you just hear how much tighter those drums now sound, how much punch they've got, and the transients are really, really defined. On its own, totally over-compressed and totally overcooked. But what we're going to do is we're going to just blend that crusher track in with the dry version. It's just on its own parallel track. Let's take a listen to what they all sound like together. Don't forget we've also got the reverbs in as well. Now take the crusher off. Back on. So for me, the biggest difference with that crusher tracking is the kick and the snare. The transients of those elements really, really punching and cutting through now. So again, let's just do a quick before and after. So this was the drums completely on their own, no parallel processing, no sends, no reverbs. Okay, just a bit flat, a bit boring, a bit bland, to be honest. Put everything else back in. And in the mix. So those drums now sound great in the mix. They're going to sound punchy pretty much anywhere that you listen, at any speaker system, and they're just cutting through really, really well for the style of the song. Now, if you're in a band, if you're an artist, if you're releasing music actually in any capacity, then I've got something that you're definitely going to want to try out. When you're trying to grow your fan base and get more ears on your music and more people listening, then one of the most important documents that you will have in order to get you access to opportunities to get your music heard is your EPK. And if you have a poorly designed, unprofessional looking EPK that doesn't include all of the relevant information that people need to make a decision about whether to feature you in your music, then you are absolutely missing out on opportunities. Artists that have great songs that are well produced and mixed, but then also have a really professional looking EPK that has all of the relevant information that people need, are far more likely to get their music heard by thousands, if not millions of people. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely missing out. Now, in order to help with this, I have got an EPK template that you can use to design your own EPK. You can customize it however you want and make it your own, but ultimately it is going to look professional, it's going to be formatted correctly, and crucially, it's going to contain all of the relevant information that you need to be including on your EPK. And best of all, it's completely free and super simple and quick to use and design. So the link is in the description below. Go and check it out.